Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's event. I'm Jason Gumper from MSDynamicsWorld.com. Really pleased to be able to host our next Portals community call. Once again, we're joined, or as always, we're joined by Nicholas Hayduke of Engineered Code to take us through today's session. If you have any questions as we go, please do use the questions block you should see in the webcast interface. Enter them really at any time. Both Nick and I will be keeping an eye on that. As I mentioned a little earlier, we're also recording today's event. And yeah, I think with that, I'm ready to hand things off to you, Nick, to take us forward.
All right, well, happy New Year, everyone. Glad you could join us today. Today's topic that we're going to be doing a bit of a deep dive into is administering PowerApps portals. So we're going to look at not necessarily how to build one, but how to, how does it get installed? How does it, how do you keep it updated? That sort of thing. So I'll kind of dive right into it, and we've got, a few exciting news items as well to cover. So it's been a busy almost 2 months since we last had a chance to chat kind of at the beginning of December. So all right, quick intro. If this is your first call ever, my name is Nicholas Hayduke. I'm the president and software engineer with Engineered Code Consulting, Inc. I'm based here in Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada. A Microsoft MVP, and I've been working with the PowerApps portals, which started off as ADX Studio portals for the last 12 years now, 11 years. If you feel so inclined, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can connect with me there. I've also got my Twitter, my blog, my YouTube channel, where we do a weekly tip on portals, as well as a podcast that I co-host with former MVP and now Microsoft employee, Mr. Nick Dolman. I think I said on the last call that we were hoping to record a podcast over the holidays in person. Unfortunately, there's this thing called COVID that got in the way of that. But we do have an episode that should be coming out in the not too distant future. So you can look forward to that coming out here soon. As always, just want to share my thanks and appreciation to Jason and the entire team at MS Dynamics World for helping us host these events, getting the word out, getting us the go-to webinar software. All that sort of stuff is really makes our life a lot easier, or it makes my life a lot easier to have his help and support on this. So always appreciated, Jason and the team at MS Dynamics World. Hopefully at some point, Jason, you and I will be able to see each other in person because it's been much too long.
Agreed.
In terms of agenda, we'll cover the portal news that has kind of cropped up over the last, like I said, 6 weeks, 7 weeks since the early December. Then we'll dive into our topic today, which is administering PowerApps portals. We'll talk about the date and time of the next call, which is a bit out of it's a bit of a weird schedule for the next one, so you can keep an eye out for that. If you have to drop in advance of that, just make sure you check back, because we normally do it at a certain time, and next month's got to be a little bit different for completely selfish reasons on my part. And then if there's time, any sort of questions you may want to ask about portals or anything, if you want to ask me who my pick is for the Super Bowl, I'm open to talk about that as well. Jason, I'm sure you're just heartbroken about the Patriots.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah. All right. So portal news. All right. Multi-select. I think this was my most popular blog post that I've ever written, was like a kind of a hacky workaround for how to get multi-select type functionality on a portal. The good news is that blog post is now irrelevant, because at least in preview, the portals now support choices columns, as they're called now, or multi-select columns or fields or attributes, or I'm sure there's another name that I'm missing here. Yeah, no, this is great news. It was, even this week I have clients asking me, oh, we want to set up some forms, and the portal must support all the Dataverse columns. It's like, well, maybe not all of them, most, but back in the day, it was no multi-select. There's still no support yet for files, images, that sort of thing. So it's pretty broad support, but not 100% coverage. So, but obviously with multi-select, that's a big step forward. So it's great to see that we've got support for multi-select. And I think that, if I recall correctly, that includes support in Liquid and the web API as well. The other thing that is in preview is basically a swap out of the architecture for the search. So the kind of the older search, the way that search worked was, and this goes back to the ADX Studio days, is that there was a Lucene index that was built, and it was very specific to the portal. Now what Microsoft is doing is they are moving that over towards using the Microsoft Dataverse Search API. So using the kind of the search that's built into Dataverse and using that to search it rather than having a separate kind of portal specific index. So honestly, I haven't had really a chance to play with that yet, but it's exciting to see what might be, what we might be able to do with that, because I think we have a little bit more control over the Dataverse Search API. So hopefully that opens up some more possibilities for us on how to enable search in the portal. So that is available in preview as well. Okay, and that's kind of what I had for news. I mean, multi-select is, one of the more exciting things to happen since probably the web API. That's going to make a lot of people happy. So, I mean, it is technically in preview. It doesn't seem like there's much opportunity for that to fail terribly. So I don't know if people would be too upset if you started using it in production, although I think Microsoft would officially say not to. But I think the risk there is pretty low. So go ahead and at least give it a try in your pre-production environments. Okay, so let's get into today's topic, which is administering PowerApps portal. So like I said earlier, this isn't about building the PowerApps portals. This is about, kind of maintaining them, installing them, doing the different things you need to do in order to administer those PowerApps portals. So there are three main interfaces that you need to be aware of if you are put in charge of administering a PowerApps portal. The first one is make.powerapps.com. The second one is the admin.powerplatform.microsoft.com. And then the final one is the PowerApps Portal Admin Center, which is accessible through either of those first two options. So there's some overlap between them, but in general, each one has their own specific purpose. There's some things that are, I would say that the admin.powerplatform.microsoft.com and the PowerApps Portal Admin Center, if I were to guess, Microsoft would probably love to move as much of the stuff away from the PowerApps Portal Admin Center. It is kind of the oldest one that's been around since the very beginning of the Microsoft portals. So I do feel like Microsoft is going to want to move a lot of that functionality into those other two interfaces, but I don't know if that's coming around the corner at all, but there is, a lot of functionality in that kind of older admin center that I think, in 5 years when we're still doing this community call, I think we won't be talking so much about that admin center, and those capabilities will be built into those kind of newer interfaces. So, but those are the three ones that you kind of need to be aware of, and you really need to, there's something in all there that are pretty critical. So you can't really get away with just ignoring one of those, because all the things you need to do to administer PowerApps portals, you're going to need to know all those different spots. So let's go over the first one here. So that is make.powerapps.com. So make.powerapps.com is also, usually where you're going to build your portals. You're using that to get access to the portals model-driven app. You're using that to get access to the Portal Studio, which is the kind of the newest interface for editing your portals. So make.powerapps.com is probably the most familiar interface for people building portals, but it's also an important interface for updating your portals, or sorry, for administering your portals. Now I just paused here because I've noticed a mistake here. Update PowerApps portals Dataverse solutions. I think that's a copy and paste error, because that is not the case. I will update that in the slides here, but Yeah, you don't update PowerApps portals, Dataverse solutions. That's in the other interface. So what do you use make.powerapps.com for? First, you use it to install a PowerApps portal. That's typically where you go to install one. Assign PowerApps portals licenses. Wow, I really messed up the slide. I must have copied and pasted something I didn't notice. Really, the main 2 points are to install a PowerApps portal and to access the portal's model-driven app and the admin center. So it's really kind of a gateway into some of the other functionality, as well as there's some authentication settings that you can do in there. So rather than stare at the slide, which is very, very wrong, I guess, let's just take a look over and check out what's kind of available. So if I am in make.powerapps.com and I'm just looking at my environment here, you'll see that if I want to create a portal, this is where I would do it. So I go over to here, I go to create, and this is pretty much the one and only way to actually create a portal. So you click on here, you go portal from blank. This is just a PowerApps environment, so it doesn't include Dynamics 365 in it, which means that I don't have the ability to create any of the other templates. So I don't have the ability to create the employee self-service or the customer self-service, the community portal or the partner portal. However, if I did have Dataverse installed, Dynamics installed, I would see those options down here. So I would see not only this portal from blank, which is kind of the starter or the kind of most base portal, I would see additional options here for creating a portal. So installing a portal is pretty straightforward. You basically click on, I want a new portal from blank. I have to give it a name, the address, and there are some new features in here actually. So one of the things that we talked about last month was the ability to include or to have multiple portals from blank. So up until a couple months ago, you were allowed one portal of each type. Now you are allowed, I think it's 50 of these portals from blank. So you're allowed a lot more than one, which is why there's this new use data from existing website record. I can talk about this in a second about the ALM implications of this new functionality, because when it first kind of came out, I would say caught by surprise, but the first time we kind of did it, it was like, oh yeah, there's some implications on how we move portals between environments. But essentially you put in your name, so I can say portals community call Jan demo. I can put in the address here, so I'll get portal community call Jan demo. I'm going to assume that no one else has picked that one before. I can pick my language, which I just have English installed in my Dataverse. And then I have the option to use data from an existing website. Now, in this case, I don't have one, so there's nothing to select from. But if I did have an existing portal installed in this environment, I would have the ability to choose that existing website record. And then all I have to do is click create. And then what's going to happen is behind the scenes, if necessary, it's going to install the Dataverse solutions that are related to the portal in the environment, and it's going to copy in all of the data that's associated with the portal as well. And that's really what Microsoft did when they kind of made it possible to have more than just one of each portal type. Now, the reason that they could only before support one of each type is that when you install the portal, first it installs the solutions, but then it copies all of this data into the tables that are created by those solutions. So it creates the website records, the web pages, the templates, all those sorts of things are data that gets added to your Dataverse environment. Well, that copy process had very specific IDs for each of the records. So GUIDs for each of the records. So like the website record for a portal from blank was always the same in every single environment because they just copied the same data into your environment. That means that if you want to do it a second time, it wouldn't work because you're not allowed to have two records with the same IDs in the environment. So what Microsoft had to do to make it possible to have multiple portals was find a way to essentially randomize those GUIDs so that they weren't the same every single time, which may not sound that hard, but where it gets complicated is when you have all these different relationships between things. So yes, you can give a new ID to the website record, but pretty much then every record is associated to that website. So all of those lookups have to get updated as well. So it's somewhat of a complex problem to say, I want to regenerate all these different IDs. And so that's what they've done. But what that means is that if you install a portal in your development environment, and then you also install a portal in your production environment, which you have to do. The only way to get the solutions into your production environment or into any environment, as I just said, was to install the portals. So if you install a portal, you are going to, and you do a portal from blank, you're going to get new sets of IDs every single time. Here at Engineered Code, we generally relied on the fact that those IDs were consistent across environments to kind of aid our development or our ALM process. So we only moved the stuff we changed. We didn't have to move everything, because if we hadn't changed it in our dev environment, when we installed it in production, those records would be there with these same IDs. That's no longer the case with these portals from blanks, because every time you install one, you do get a new set of IDs for those records. And even though they may have the identical data in it, from the configuration migration tools perspective, if they have different IDs, then they're not the same. So moving forward, for portals from blank, what we have to do is essentially we install a portal that installs all the solutions, that installs all the data, and then what you can do is delete all that data and then import all of the new data, or import all the data from your downstream environment, so development or test or whatever it is, into that environment, and then just point the portal at that new website record. So it just adds a little bit of extra steps to the ALM process. So just be aware of that when you install new portals from blank, is that you're essentially getting new IDs every single time. We have a question: is there a way to create a portal that is truly blank without the sample pages? There's not. At this current time, the only way that I'm aware of that you can install a portal is to follow this process, and it will include the data. So yeah, it would be nice if we could install it truly blank without the sample pages, so it truly was just like, essentially what you're asking for there is, can we install a portal or can we just install the portal solutions? But currently that is not possible, so unfortunately. So yeah, the installation process is pretty straightforward. You click create. Be aware that there are some permissions that you require. The biggest one is that you need the ability to, you need to be an admin in this kind of Dataverse environment, but you also need the ability to create an app registration in Azure Active Directory, because that app registration is what is used to communicate between the portal and Dynamics. So if your user account doesn't have the ability to, or the permissions to create an app registration, then you are not going to be able to finish this process. So that is, we're often asked about what kind of permissions you need, and there's some things you need to be a global admin for, more on the SharePoint integration, Power BI, that sort of thing. But to install a portal, you do need to be able to create app registrations in Azure Active Directory. But beyond that, those permissions, it's pretty straightforward. You give it a name, you give it an address, you pick your language, and you click create, and then you wait anywhere from, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes, sometimes it's an hour, depends on what the gremlins are doing behind the scenes, but you click create, and then after some time you'll come back and your portal will be provisioned. Let's look at what else we have in this environment. So you can see in this environment I do have a portal. So if I click on this, I've got a trial. Here is my PowerApps portal. So this is another thing we can do. So we're in the make.powerapps.com. I can use this to quickly get access to the portal itself. So this is the portal that I spun up last week. You also have access to some different areas in here. So you have the ability to edit. This is taking you into what's called the Portal Studio. So this is the relatively new, it's maybe a couple of years older, but definitely the newest interface that we have for managing or building your PowerApps portal. So this is where you can create pages, you can add components, you can update the theme. There are a bunch of capabilities in here, and the way you get to them is through make.powerapps.com. So this, again, this is Portal Studio, and the way you get to it is through the make.powerapps.com. Let me just go back here. So what else do we have in here? We've got, you can browse to it, you can delete it. Now, I often get asked about how do I just easily delete a portal? And the answer is you cannot easily delete a portal. Yes, I can hit the delete button here, but it's important to understand what it is that you are deleting. When you are managing a portal, it's important to understand that there are a number of different components that make up that portal. So one thing is there is a web application that Microsoft hosts on your behalf for you in Azure. That is the portal web application. There's also the solutions that are installed in your Dataverse environment that defines the schema for the tables that make up your portal. So that would be the web pages, web templates. There's a whole host of them. There's, I don't know, 30, 40, 50. I've never counted them, but there's a lot of ADX underscore entities or tables in the database. And so you've got those solutions in your environment as well. And then there's the data within those solutions. So those are kind of the three main components. So what happens when you delete a portal this way? If you click that delete button, it actually only deletes one of those three elements. And the only thing it actually deletes is the web application. So it deletes the resources in Azure, but it does not touch any of the data in your Dataverse environment, and it doesn't uninstall the solutions. So if you truly want to uninstall a portal, the steps are to delete the web application and then to uninstall manually by going to solutions and uninstalling all of the solutions, typically in reverse order in which they were installed. So if I want to do that, I would delete that portal, and then I'd go into here and I would start with this one. I'd click on this one, I'd say delete that thing, and I would basically go all the way back, and these were all the portal solutions all the way up to like right here. So what do we have here? I don't know, 20 or so portal solutions. So I'd start at the top, but I would uninstall all the way until I got to the end. And once I had completed that, if I deleted the portal web app and I would have uninstalled the solutions, then I will be able to say I've successfully uninstalled my portal. Because these are managed solutions, which means that when you delete the solutions, the data is deleted as well. So uninstalling the solutions takes care of the data and the solutions. Deleting the portal takes care of the web application. But simply just deleting the portal does not remove any of the data nor the solutions from your environment. And that's something you have to do explicitly. There's no button to delete all of the solutions associated with your portal. So if you do want to uninstall, that does come from this particular, you do that in make.powerapps.com. Question here. Please confirm, how many portals can I create license spaces, one or multiple? So you can create as many so the number of portals you can create is limited by a few different things. So you can only have one per Dataverse environment. You can have one of the Dynamics portals. So the Dynamics portals are customer self-service, employee self-service, community, and partners. You can have one of those. They are working on making it so you can have multiple of those, but for now you can have one. And then you can have, I believe it's up to 50 of the PowerApps portals or the starter portals or the portal from blank. So you can have up to 50 of those. Now, in terms of the licensing, if you are, because there's different licensing, so you could, if you have a PowerApps license, so if you're trying to build a portal for internal users and you're using PowerApps licenses for them to access that portal, and you have the per user license, which allows you to access unlimited number of PowerApps, then you can have an unlimited number of PowerApps portals. You can install, again, you're limited by what I just talked about in terms of the 50 or one of each of those things. The licensing limitation is you aren't limited. Now, if you are buying external logins, there is a minimum allocation that you have to apply to each portal. I can't remember off the top of my head. I want to say it's like you have to do at least 100 logins per portal. So if you buy 1,000 logins, that means you could have 10 portals. But again, you're never really going to be limited because a bunch of those portals could be for internal access only. So Microsoft doesn't really restrict you from creating those portals, but if you are using them for external access and you're not appropriately licensed, you're going to have a conversation with Microsoft about that. So technically speaking, it's like 50 and then one of all the Dynamics ones. From a licensing perspective, if you want to be if you're kind of following the licensing rules, I believe there's a minimum number of page views and logins that you need to assign to them if they're for external access. So those are kind of some of the things you have to consider in the minimum of, or what's kind of the maximum number of portals that you can have. Jim's got another question here. We shouldn't do this uninstall solution step if we have other portals using them. Yes, absolutely. Now, each of the different types of portals have their own slightly different set of solutions. So there's a bunch of these which are standard. And I would say roughly, if I were to look at the list, everything up to here is probably pretty standard across all of the portals. But then you get into the Dataverse base portal, Dataverse starter portal. Those are specific or custom to this particular portal. So if you were to install, say, the customer self-service one, and I were to go in there and install that today, I would see a number of new solutions added. I wouldn't see this many because a bunch of them will be shared, but I will still see another, I don't know, 10 because there's knowledge base, there's help desk, there's a number of solutions that get installed. So you definitely don't want to uninstall those solutions if other portals are using it. That's absolutely correct. However, when we have one type of portal, we have gone and uninstalled other solutions that are unrelated. So for example, if someone went in and installed the community portal and we're only using customer self-service, we will sometimes uninstall just the solutions associated with customer self-service, or sorry, with the community portal, for example. And then, yeah, just to confirm, Jim, it is one of each type. So you can have one employee, one customer, one community, one partner, and 50 of the starter portals or the portals from Link. All right. So the other thing that you can do when you're administering the portal is there is I keep using the word new. I mean, it's not like it's came out in the last month, but the relatively new area for authentication settings. So if you go into here and you click the settings link, you'll see that we got authentication. Just before I jump over there, I'll just kind of mention, so we got the administration. This is the portal, PowerApps Portals Admin Center. So we're going to get to that in a second. This is basically the link that takes you over there. And then we got the site settings. Now these site settings, that's just a link into the portal model-driven app, the portal admin model-driven app. So when you click on that, you would be taken into the kind of the old school way of administering your portal within the model-driven app. Still within Make, so these are basically two links that take you outside of make.powerapps.com. This one takes you to another area within PowerApps or make.powerapps, and that is to administer the authentication settings of the portal. So within here, you're going to see a list of all the different identity providers that we can configure. We can add new ones. We can configure some of the basic settings like registration and external login and requiring unique email address, all that sort of stuff. If you're going to set up Azure AD B2C, I click configure here. I can step through this wizard. If you don't know about it already, definitely what I'd recommend you do is go to make.preview.powerapps.com. Make.preview.powerapps.com includes the new wizard interface for Azure AD B2C, which handles a lot of the heavy lifting for you. It actually handles the provisioning of the resources in Azure AD or within the Azure portal for that. So it takes it so that you can essentially just follow the wizard in this interface, and it does most, if not all, of the work for you, versus the other one where you kind of have to keep flipping back and forth between the Azure portal and this portal. But managing your authentication happens in here. Now, this, just so you know, when you make any of the setting changes in here, what this is really doing is impacting those site settings that we were just looking where there was the link in the model-driven app. So it's really just a nicer interface and a kind of a wizard, and has additional validation that you may not get in the model-driven app. But really what you're doing here is you're just modifying these settings. So for example, if I go into here and I were to change this setting, I could go into the back end and I could see which site setting was impacting. So this is just kind of a nicer graphical user interface on top of the site settings that exist in the model-driven app. So it doesn't replace the site settings, it's just a nicer interface. Yeah, so here's my portal. And like I said, what can we do in here? We can access the model-driven app. We can access the Portal Studio. This is where we install portals. This is where we can access the admin center. If you need to uninstall a portal, that's where you can do it as well. All right, quick check of the questions before we move on to the next one. I should check my slides first to see if these next ones are so bad. I must have, clearly it was late night when I was putting these slides together. Let's see here. So what's the next one? Admin.powerplatform.microsoft.com. Update, oh yeah, this one looks relatively accurate, much more accurate than the last one. So what can we do in here? We can update the PowerApps portals Dataverse solutions. We can assign PowerApps portal licenses. We can view all the portals across all of our different environments. And there are links here to access the admin center as well. So the thing with the admin.powerplatform.microsoft.com is it's, if you think of make.powerapps.com about being about a single environment, so you kind of toggle between the different environments, admin.powerplatform.microsoft.com is more at a higher level, so it's kind of the tenant level that shows you all the things across your entire tenant. So why don't we take a look at what that might look like? So that is here. Start from scratch here. So the typical reasons that we are going into here. The first one would be to update the PowerApps portals Dataverse solutions. As we just talked about a few minutes ago, the solutions are installed when you first install a portal. It installs that kind of relatively long list of solutions. But once you do that, Microsoft will never, has never, probably won't, never that I've heard of, automatically install any of the solutions associated with portals. That's something that they basically get you to do, and so you can do that yourself in your own environments at kind of the pace that you would like. So that is if you are wanting to upgrade the solutions associated with your portals environment, that is done in the Power Platform Admin Center. So if I go into portals, under resources, I go to portals, I can now see all the portals across my environment. So this was the one right here that we were looking at, but you can see in other environments, I have different portals. Now what I can do is if I click manage, what that's going to do is that's going to take me to the PowerApps portal admin center. So that's just another link over to something that will be kind of our last topic of conversation. So that's just the link over there. So that's what manage does. But I can also say check portal packages for upgrade. So this then goes and checks the versions of the solutions in my environment and will tell me if I have something I would like to upgrade. I just installed this last week, so there's nothing to upgrade yet. Let me just try this one. This one might be old enough. This was from 2019. I don't know if I've upgraded that one. We'll just see. Maybe I'm lucky and there'll be something to upgrade there. I'm not even sure if that environment still exists or not, so we'll see. And if there is, it'll basically say, yes, there's something for you to upgrade. Would you like to upgrade those? You'll click a link and you'll be taken over to another experience that allows you to upgrade those solutions. And you can kind of be selective about which parts you want to upgrade. Wonder if I've broken it. I don't actually know if that portal, if the environment for that portal exists. I would suspect not, because I believe my licensing for that ended. So I'm going to close that. But I'll show you kind of how that would work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the environments area. I'm going to go into that environment here. For all your reference, I use this particular tenant uses the community version of the portals or PowerApps. So it's really kind of handy to just kind of play around and test things out. So then if I click on portals, I'll go into the area to manage this, and then I can click on the portal package details. And here you can see, I can see what's installed. And what would happen is if there was something to upgrade, I would see it under the status that I could upgrade it. I could then select the ones that I want to upgrade. Obviously I don't have anything, and then I'd click the update button. And then essentially all it does is it's installing those solutions into your environment. And it usually takes, again, 10, 15 minutes, an hour, something like that. Not seconds, but not days. So that's how you upgrade your portal solutions. Now, keep in mind, it's like any other sort of solution import. These are managed solutions. In theory, should be relatively low impact on your environment, but always best practice to do this in your dev environment and then try in your test environment and kind of move those changes upstream. Just don't start going off into installing the things in your production environment without testing So, but that's how you would upgrade the solutions that are associated with your portal. All right, let's talk about license assignment. So, PowerApps portals is for external users, so users that don't belong or aren't employees of the company that owns the portal. If you are external, you are licensed by essentially kind of every time you log in. Every time you log in, you get 24 hours for one of these tokens. Essentially, you consume a token, you get 24 hours, you can log in as much as you want. But if you log in 25 hours later, you kind of consume another token, and then you get another 24 hours. So how the licensing works is you buy these logins, and then you can assign them across your portal. So if you're looking at the pricing, there's a pricing tier for 100 logins. There's a tight pricing tier for 1,000 logins. There's a pricing tier for, and it kind of goes higher at different volumes. And at higher volumes, obviously you're paying less per login. But that doesn't mean that you have to assign all of those. So if you buy, say, 1,000, you don't have to assign all 1,000 to one portal. Once you buy 1,000, you can decide how you want to distribute it. As I mentioned earlier, there are some minimums. I think it's 100. It'll probably say on the screen that we're going to go to, but I'll show you the screen where you actually take the ones that you bought and distribute them amongst your portals. So that's under capacity. So you go into here, and then you go under the summary tab, you go to add-ons. So then if you go to manage, this is where you will see, and I'll just select this one. This is where you can see what your assignment is. Now, I don't have any licenses. I haven't bought any because my portals that I use, I just signed in myself. So I'm signed in myself. I'm an internal user, so I'm using my PowerApps license, which I get through the community plan to get that. But had I purchased licenses, this is where you would put them in. So you can see here portal page views. So you see that for each portal, a minimum of 50,000 page views are required and a minimum of 100 logins are required. So you would put those numbers in there. It's important that you roughly accurately estimate what those are, because this is like the biggest factor in determining what type of resources your the Azure web app gets. So if you put in, I'm going to have 100, but you have 10,000 people come to your website, those 10,000 people are not going to be very happy because you're going to get the tiniest little web server to host your portal on. So that's one of the biggest drivers for how does your portal web app scale is based on the number of logins that you put into that box. So if you were to have purchased some licenses, you would put them in the box there, click save, and that will assign those licenses to your portal. One of the biggest problems that we see with performance is we get a client who said, hey, we just turned it on and it doesn't, or not even a client, but someone comes up and says, hey, my portal performance sucks. We just turned it on and everything's so slow. And the first thing we check is, hey, did you actually buy any licenses? Because if you don't, you are essentially a free version of Azure. And if anyone knows what kind of resources the free Azure web apps get, it is pretty tiny. So I wouldn't expect the portal to perform well at all. All right. Like I said, you can view all the portals. You can click here. You can see all the portals across your environment. You can access the admin center. But primarily what we're doing in this interface when it comes to portals is we are assigning the licenses and we're updating the Dataverse solution. So those are the two main reasons that we come into the Power Platform Admin Center, other than, of course, to create new environments, that sort of thing. I mean, that's where we create the new environments, and then once we've created them, we create the portals. But that is the main purposes of the Power Platform Admin Center. A quick check on the questions. I don't see any more on this. All right. So then the last interface I wanted to look at would be the PowerApps Portal Admin Center. So you think maybe under here? Nope. I kind of already showed you where that goes. If you go into portals, and then I go into here and I click manage, that's going to open up my PowerApps Portal Admin Center. Now it's important to understand that every one of your portals has its own admin center. So once you're into here, this is just the admin center for this particular portal. So the things that you can do in here, it's a pretty giant list. If I were to look at my slides here, this is just a small subsection of all the things we can do. I'll quickly kind of run through some of the things you can do in here, but I would say, this is definitely where a lot of the things that you need to do when you're administering your portal. So, for example, you can change the name of it. You can convert it from a trial to production. Make sure you do this. Every portal you spin up starts off as a trial. So if you know that it's going to be a production portal or a sandbox portal or something that you don't want to disappear after 30 days, make sure you convert it. However, if you don't convert it, it's not necessarily the end of the world. You will obviously lose the web app, but again, you never will lose, Microsoft will never uninstall solutions, they'll never delete your data. So if you spin up a new portal, you can then select the existing website record and just essentially re-provision the portal. But it's way easier just to convert to production and not lose your trial portal if it's after 30 days and it gets deleted. You've got the base portal URL. Here's where you can select the website record. Here's where you can turn the portal on and off. And here's where you can enable the portal for early upgrade. So the portal for early upgrade, this is solely referring to the updates to the Azure web application. All of the code that Microsoft writes for the PowerApps portals is in that web application. Microsoft handles updating that for you automatically. You don't really have much of a say in it other than this checkbox. This checkbox basically says, maybe put me at the front of the list when you're doing it. You're not getting things years ahead, but like if all the updates are rolling out over a month, you might be in the first week versus the last week. So if you check that box, you're going to get the upgrade to your portal application kind of sooner than someone who hasn't checked that box. There are a number of things under the portal actions. So you can restart the portal. You can update the URL of your Dynamics or Dataverse instance if that happens to have changed. If you've installed the partner portal, you can add the PSA or field service extensions. You can get the public key, which is required for some of the OAuth stuff. You can get the latest metadata translations. You can disable custom errors. You can enable diagnostic logging. You can reset your portal. Be careful, reset, restart, very different things. Restart is reboot your portal, restart the web application. Reset means the same thing as deleting it. So reset your portal means you're gonna delete the web application. Again, that's not gonna delete your solutions. It's not gonna delete your data. But if you click this button, it's gonna cause you 20 minutes of pain to go in and set everything up again. So only do that if you intend on doing that. But yeah, reset the portal is delete the Azure web app associated with it. Change the base URL of the portal. So when you created that URL for the portal, something.powerappsportals.com, you can change that after the fact if you'd like. You can enable maintenance mode, which means that when you've got maintenance mode enabled, if your Dataverse instance, for example, is undergoing maintenance, this was kind of more of a problem in the olden days, doesn't happen so much now, but if your Dataverse instance isn't accessible, you can set up a nice maintenance mode page versus a big ugly error page. You can manage custom certificates. So this is about managing the custom domains for your portal. So most people don't want something.powerappsportals.com. They want something.yourdomain.com. So you do that by managing these custom certificates. Oh, no, sorry, that's different. Managed custom certificates are for the implicit grant flow. So this is something different. Right, I don't have the ability to manage the SSL certificates because this is a trial. So normally you would see the ability to manage the SSL certificates and manage the domain names. This is for the implicit grant flow. So this is a relatively new feature where you can upload your own custom certificates for the implicit grant flow. You can manage your Dynamics 365 instance. So if you want to change where it's pointing to, you can do that. This is also where you set up the SharePoint integration. So you have to click this button. You have to be a global admin in order to click this button and basically set up the SharePoint integration. Same goes with the Power BI. So when you want to enable Power BI integration, you have to click this button. And if you're using Power BI embedded, then you have to click this button. Again, this is something that a global administrator needs to do. The portal checker, if you haven't heard about the portal checker, it's a tool that you can run that will kind of check some of the more common mistakes or settings that people maybe not have configured most appropriately. So you can run this tool and it will kind of give you a report of its findings and may or may not have some recommendations on how you can improve the performance or security of your particular portal. So click this button, takes a minute or two, you'll get the report back. I always recommend doing that right before you go to launch, or do it all the time, and it doesn't hurt, just to get your feedback on there. Manage the portal authentication key. This is the key that's used to secure the communication between the portal and Dataverse and some other things. And you'll see that there's an expiry on this. So I believe they're roughly every two years. I guess this looks more like it's like a year. But you'll get some emails from Microsoft saying, hey, make sure you go and update this key. It's pretty simple. You click the update key, and as long as you haven't used that key elsewhere, it's pretty straightforward. But it is something that you do need to kind of do on a manual basis it used to be every couple of years, but it looks like they may have lowered that. Oh, I guess that's December 2023, so that's still a couple of years away. So yeah, 2 years sounds about right. And finally here, we got the setup IP address restrictions. So if you want a portal, whether it's your dev portal and you only want certain people to access it, or whether it's even in production, maybe you want to restrict it to employees only, you can put those IP addresses in here. And if the user's IP address doesn't match that IP address and they try and hit the portal, they won't be able to get access. So very easy way of securing your portal if there's a known IP address that you know all your users are going to be coming from. All right, and that's kind of what I wanted to kind of go through in terms of administering your PowerApps portals. You've got your three main interfaces. You've got your make.powerapps.com, you've got your Power Platform Admin Center, and you've got this PowerApps Portals Admin Center. So those are the three areas that you're primarily doing it. As you can see, it's like you install in one place and then you can delete in another, or you can, and there's some overlap between things. So like, you can restart your portal here, you can delete your portal here, you can also delete your portal using the make.powerapps.com. However, I would say most of the functionality exists only kind of in a single place. The most functionality is kind of in this PowerApps Portal Admin Center, but I would say on a regular basis, you're probably using the make.powerapps.com the most, and then you're kind of only using these as kind of one time, hey, I want to set up Power BI integration. Once I do that, I don't have to do it again kind of thing. So those are the interfaces that if someone tells me, hey, I'm a PowerApps Portals expert, I would expect you to know these three interfaces like the back of your hand. All right. Let's chat about our next call here. So our next call is, I figure what better way to spend Valentine's Day than listening to me talk about PowerApps Portals. So I'm expecting that everyone will bring a date. So we'll have double the number of people, but actually more realistically, the reason we're doing this is I plan on being on vacation, assuming COVID doesn't go crazy or any crazier than it is. I'm hoping to be on vacation in that kind of last week in February, so wasn't able to kind of hit any of the last couple of weeks of Thursdays. So that's why we've moved it to, I believe that's a Monday, February 14th. So we'll do that next month, and but then kind of go back to normally we're the kind of second last Thursday of the month. We'll probably return to that in March. So yeah, February 14th is the next one. Always looking for topic suggestions. I know we get a few sent in every month, so but if you do have any things that you'd like to get covered, please let me know. As always, the MS Dynamics world, thank you for your support and your assistance. I'll now, I guess, open the floor. We got another 10 minutes here. I'm happy to hang out if anyone has any questions related or not to this month's topic. I'm not particular, so if you have any portals related questions, anything about Dataverse or PowerApps portals or anything like that, I would happily accept your questions now. And if not, I'm happy to end a few minutes early and let everyone get back to their regularly scheduled programming.
Yeah, let's make a last call here. I'm not seeing any either at this point.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you so much for showing up today. Hopefully, one question. Are Microsoft likely to put something together to transfer portal configurations? Yeah, I mean, they've given us a few options. I think, if I were to guess as to, from what I've seen, the direction they seem to be moving is with the PowerApps command line or the Power Platform command line interface. So the PowerApps or the Power Platform CLI has the PA portals commands in it, which include the upload and download commands. So you're able to download an entire portal, all the configuration related to that portal, and then you're able to upload that portal. So that is, I think, the direction they're going. To be honest, I'm not using it quite yet. It doesn't quite match the way that we like to do it because it does move everything. Although we are starting to use it now with the portal, like the starter portals, because of the ID thing I was mentioning earlier. So, there are some people who swear by it though. So it just depends on kind of what your preferences are. But I would say that if you're just getting started, I would be learning how to use the PowerApps command line interface, which has the upload download, which I'm trying to remember, I think we covered that a little bit in one of the calls. But essentially it downloads all of your portal configuration into, it's kind of a YAML and folder structure. So there's like a folder for each one of the tables, and then there's a YAML structure for the records, and you have your HTML and CSS. So it's kind of a two-purpose tool. One is for moving between environments, and then the other one is like if you just want to edit your portal, like it allows you to essentially edit it in VS Code. I believe, I'm trying to remember, yeah, it's Alexander, another MVP who has a plugin for VS Code, a VS Code extension that allows you to manage, or that allows you to kind of integrate those tools nicely into VS Code. So essentially you can download your portal and then update and be editing your web templates in VS Code and then quickly push it back up to the server. So it's a nice tool. We've got, yes, and then if you don't want to use that, what we typically use is the configuration migration tool, which is another tool from Microsoft, which is a little bit more, it's more kind of set up, more to set up to begin with. You're a little bit more explicit about what you can change. One of the things I like about it is that you can move more than just portal configurations. You can move other configuration, whatever tables, whatever fields you want. But there's also the portal records mover in the XRAM toolbox. As much as I love the portal record mover, it's been around a long time. The guy who created it is also the creator of the XRAM toolbox, so it's Tanguy who does it all. I'm wondering if the CLI will replace it, mostly because they offer very similar capabilities. So I haven't talked to Tanguy about it, but I'm guessing he might look at that and say, well, I mean, Microsoft's going to invest all their stuff into it, and it offers very similar features. Like you basically point at a portal, can download everything. His does offer some cool filtering and stuff. So I still think there's a place for it, but I think where Microsoft is trying to get is roughly what his tool is currently. So I think longer term that might come to replace the portal records mover. All right. We've got Ulrike here. Please share links to documentation or more information on the relation between performance and licensing allocation. I would, if there was any. That's mostly based on experience, and like I know it's definitely true. I don't know if there's no like specific, hey, if you buy 100 licenses, you get an S1, and if you buy 1,000 licenses, you get an S2. I do know for sure we had one client who was responsible for buying the licenses. They bought the licenses and they launched the portal, or it wasn't launched yet, but they were kind of in production, and the performance was atrocious, and the reason was because they bought the licenses, but they didn't allocate them to their environments. So there definitely is a correlation, that I can guarantee, but I don't think that there's any documentation that says what that correlation is, what you have to buy. So the advice is always to buy, buy your best guess as to what you're going to need. If you are experiencing slowness, I would definitely create a ticket with Microsoft. And one of the things they may come back with is, because we still don't have the reports to know how many people are logging in. So that's something you got to reach out to Microsoft for as well. But it's certainly something like I know that there's kind of this, some people say, well, they're not really hard enforcing the licensing, which is true. But, practically, if your portal is terribly slow, that's some pretty good enforcement that you might want to go buy those licenses. So, all right. I don't see any other questions, Jason, so I think we can probably wrap it up there.
All right, great job as always, Nick. Thanks to everyone in the audience for all your questions. We will be following up with a link to next month and any other resources Nick wants to include. And yeah, we hope to see you back. With that, I think we will conclude. Thanks again, Nick.
All right, thanks everyone.